you tired of the daily hustle and bustle, the endless traffic just to get your little one to a good school? GMS Snap Bingo offers a unique blend of academic excellence with a holistic child development in both nursery and primary. We provide a national curriculum with an international touch. Enroll your child today by visiting our campus along Trinity College, Nabigo Road. GMS Snap Bingo, where every child's potential is a reality. Because we care.
Hello and welcome to Second Take with IDK. It's a weekend when we are shooting this, so we hope wherever you are having a wonderful time. My name is Mevo Kebirungi with IDK himself.
I'm glad to be here. Ismail Dakaba Chigongo. You can also rename me Everything Can Wait.
Yes,
yeah.
We are here in the heart of Kampala, I would say, at the multi-choice offices. They bring us DSTV, which is showing or has shown or will be showing all the 104 games of the FIFA World Cup 2026. We are left with about maybe 80 games now, and we're going to be talking a lot about them. But Isma, what is your favorite DSTV channel?
Tough to pick because I don't know of anyone in my life, maybe those that I do not interact with. I don't know of anyone who watches as much television as I do in the conventional way or listens to as much radio as I do, and the variety of them, because I'm able to, okay, I don't have the resources right now to buy a car radio. So if you're selling car radios, please come to me and donate. Yeah, a car radio. So my radio stops at 90. With DSTV, between channel 222, which has a lot of football, and then ESPN 218 and 219, because at least those I'll give them a considerable amount of time. With ESPN, of course, with the NBA, then Fast Take. I resumed watching Fast Take. I used to watch Fast Take in the past. Then someone accused Stephen A. Smith of shouting, and I followed their advice, so I stopped watching. But I resumed, and he shouts. Yeah, it's still the same. I hardly miss Sports Center on ESPN and ESPN FC. There's a show called ESPN FC with Frank LeBoeuf, Dan Thomas, Steve Nicol, the former Shaka Hislop, the former West Ham goalkeeper. I watch a bit of that, but that is not to say I don't watch all the other things, because I understand my decoder from channel 102 to channel 410. Yeah, in there, right from Mnet East to Mnet
so you have
Movies
a full
1.
package, basically.
Yeah, Mnet Movies 2, 3, then Studio Universal, which is channel 112, then 113, the movie room. If I'm lying as you're seeing this, please be flipping your decoder. Universal 117, 118, which is the telenovelas, 122, Comedy Central,
124.
124. In there is also BBC Entertainment. By the time you get 137, it's TNT. Then
I hope you mention my favorite.
I hope I remember the channel number. Then there is Pearl Magic Prime now, 148. Of course, for Loving Beyond, Crossroads, Sanyo, Damalai. Which is your favorite? Then there is the Discovery, the murder channels.
Yeah,
there are channels that have a lot of murder.
171.
171, that's where I was going. 171, 172. Then there is a History Channel.
Oh, my.
Then Nat Geo 181. Yeah, then you get into the sports channels. 218.
Cooking.
There is a cooking channel. That one I've seen. I have a cousin sister with whom we've shared a lot of our formative years. She's called Joan Mutesi. She's the one who I first saw watch a lot of cooking, and I'm thinking, but these recipes on TV, after that we eat matoke here. And I never see them making posho. So I never see them making posho, yet I love my posho. So I used to see her do, but I know she tries out a lot of those things that she sees. And I've also seen my younger sister, Amina. She also goes to those channels cooking and tries things, and I'm always, ebyo nno mutumenya ebyo biri wala. Then of course into the sports channels, which are so many from 218 to 241, yeah, including some in Portuguese. Then of course the local channels from Kenya. I hardly, whenever I have the time, I think twice a month, I watch JK Live, yeah, Jeff Koinange, wonderful journalist, even from his time at CNN. You know the story how he left CNN?
I remember there was a bit of a scandal.
Yeah. He got into an affair, allegedly, with a personal assistant of Abdoulaye Wade, I think, one of the presidents, I think, in Senegal.
Yeah.
Yeah, to get stories out. So he was accused and many things, and he came home. So into those, and then into NTV and all the other local channels. Then in the 370s, by then you've got to Salt.
You've missed the cartoons
Baba,
from 300 to 310, Jim Jam.
To 314.
To
Yeah, not
okay.
310, 314. From
CBBS,
30. Recently, when
Cartoon Network.
earlier this year, the founder of CNN,
yeah.
Ted Turner, passed on.
Yeah.
And I was talking to one of the people I have a lot of conversations with, my 10-year-old son, and he was watching Cartoon Network. So I told him, remember the old guy that I was watching on TV that passed on, that has had so much of an impact on television? And I told him he actually also owns Cartoon Network. Then he said, hey, so he's going to own it now that he's dead. Will the cartoons still be on TV?
Oh, Wambi.
I told him, yes, the cartoons will still be there because it's an entire corporation. Yeah, from those cartoon channels, 301 to 314. Then there is learning. Then more local channels in the 370s. Then you get to 400, from BBC to CNN to Sky to SABC to Newsroom Africa to Al Jazeera.
For me, some of those
to
are
CCT.
blank because I don't pay for them. But
But there is a package for everyone.
there is, as they say, everything can wait. Only 15,000 shillings, please. Get yourself one.
You know, one of the funny things, at my workplace, and I don't have a specific reporting time, it's not 8 to 5. Eh? My job is largely deadline oriented. I could be in office at 10 p.m. and not be in office at 7 a.m. But I could also be in office at 7 a.m. and not be there at midday. I notice that most of the time, before I walk in, the television is off. Yeah? Unless there is a riot that people are watching, or budget reading or something in Parliament. Then when I walk in, I choose the channel that everyone watches. And people have got accustomed to it, or bachigumira.
They have no choice.
They have no choice. And during daytime, most of the time, it's cricket. It's cricket. Even as we shoot this, there's New Zealand against England. And by the time we are done, I hope to watch the T20 International between Ireland and India. Yeah, in Dublin.
Hours a day you have.
Yeah.
And you still don't look tired after all the football that we are going to start talking about now. But I want us to begin about your opinion on African football generally, with what you've seen at the World Cup. And I'm coming from some comments made by Bastian Schweinsteiger. I like the way his name is. I don't know if I pronounced it well, but...
You haven't.
It's what?
Schweinsteiger. Yeah.
Schwein.
Don't skip the W, it becomes a V.
Yeah. Wien, like Vienna.
Yeah.
It's Wien, actually.
Yeah.
Volkswagen.
Volkswagen, yeah.
Yeah. The V is an F, so
Yeah.
it's actually Volkswagen, not Volkswagen as we call it in Uganda. But anyway, he said African football is unorthodox, is wild, is not conditioned by tactics, is basically unpredictable. And so many people are upset, saying it has some racist undertones even. The Ivory coach responded by saying they're not just as physical as they are, they also basically use their head, when they're playing football. So generally, as Isma, was Bastian Schweinsteiger correct? Or, in your opinion, what do you think of African football?
I'd actually not heard the comment until I got the reaction from the Ivory Coast national team coach, Emancify, who actually, in his response, said, when he was growing up, because he used to play in the midfield, his contemporaries used to call Emasify Bastian, yeah, because he admired Bastian Schweinsteiger that much. So he was equated to that. Some of the things that he said are not new, yeah? And perhaps the most radical comments I've ever had about African football and African football players came from the former French right-back, Willy Sagnol. When Willy Sagnol was coaching Bordeaux in the French Ligue A, and he eventually lost his job, he made a comment that there's a difference between European and African players. That African players may not understand a lot of the things to do with the tactics, but they are also very good physically, yeah? And the physical attributes, of course, a lot of them coming from West Africa. When you have a 6'4" Papa Bouba Diop, the late, running across the midfield in the French League A, it's a sight to behold. Look at Yaya Toure in comparison to Cole Palmer and Phil Foden, who play in similar positions. So the physical attributes are there. When Bastian Schweinsteiger made those comments while working for the German national broadcaster who are doing the World Cup, he intended to communicate something about the game between Ivory Coast and Germany and how Germany should approach the game. Because he thought if Germany go with the way they want to play, keep the ball and knock it around, they were not going to get a positive result and they're going to be pushed by the Ivorians, which happened. But also, part of the comments he made are very true. Many of our players do not interact with a professional coach until perhaps they are anywhere close to 17. Now, in the kind of setup that the European players are raised, by the age of 6 to 8, they're actually being trained by an actual coach. So their interpretation of the game is much more different. And I could equate that to the first time I watched, let's say, Lionel Messi or Cesc Fabregas at 15, you could almost understand his interpretation of a game was much higher than a 15-year-old. And I have no shame about it. I have not seen 15, 16-year-olds come out of this continent and their tactical interpretation of what to do inside the four lines is the same. So it's important that we do not always act as victims, yeah? Because that's what we normally do. We always think that everyone who is commenting about an African player or a black player is doing it with the wrong intention.
Yeah.
The interpretation of which player could I use? Let's say Ndiefi. Yeah, if you watch Pius Ndiefi play for Cameroon, may not necessarily be the same of Joshua Kimmich. And for me, I view this normally as an advantage, that African teams, if you have the physical attributes of Yaya Toure and the ability to race across the pitch with that frame, you should be able to use that to your advantage to overcome the attributes that players like Alcantara could have or Andreas Iniesta, that those other elements of your game, I see it as a strength and not a weakness. When Bastian Schweinsteiger said it, he was actually equating it to being a weakness of African sides, in comparison to Germany, in comparison to Germany in that sense. But you could also tell that for Ghana to get a result of England, they had to get very physical on the English. And that worked in the Ghanaians' favor.
I was just dying because I know you don't like talking about barren draws, but we have to squeeze that in. Yeah. Did you like how Ghana defended? I mean, that draw was like a win for them.
Yes, I did, because that's the only chance they could get a result. Remember, in the history of football, England have only lost to an African team once, and that was last year against Senegal. Senegal did beat them 3-1 in a friendly should have been in June of 2025. And they haven't lost any other game. And most of the results have been 3-4-5 when they've met African teams. So maybe that showed a bit of the narrowing gap. And I've always said that the gap in sport has narrowed because you have a lot more people with knowledge. When Claude Leroy took over the Cameroon side in the 1980s, we didn't have enough of those European exposed coaches like we do now. Now you have a coach like Carlos Queiroz, who has coached at Manchester United, at Real Madrid, in charge of a team like Ghana. So he has actually more experience than Thomas Tuchel would. And he's transferring the knowledge from that level to a level that you would imagine is much lower. And that is largely because of the resources. And some of the knowledge, for me, is not even just in the players' minds. There is knowledge that comes with nutrition, with the right facilities, with the kind of stadiums we use. I was told of a story from cricket, and I want to digress before I get back to that. The current South African national cricket team coach is called Conrad Shukri. About 12 to 13 years ago, he was coaching the Uganda national team. And I was told a story by the people who are part of that team, the Davis Karashani. When Conrad Shukri first came here, he realized we do not have the basics. So, one of the first things he told the players when they went for a tournament, he just looks at what they had on their plates for breakfast. And he told them, you cannot be having all these carbohydrates while going into a game. It should be a protein diet. Yeah? So, he was telling players, that's a very basic thing. Players walk into a 5-star hotel facility, and there's a very long table with a 3-course, 4-course breakfast.
Yeah.
And they are putting chapatis on their plate. And he told them, the digestion that you're going to have is going to happen while you're fielding, and that is going to cause you an issue. So you'll be heavy off their feet. And that was a challenge when they were fielding. So then they have lunch. And he tells one of the players had served a lot of food on their plate. And he told them, because now they are going into bat, the way cricket is, you've been fielding in the morning and you're going to bat in the afternoon. And he told him that once the team starts batting and you're batting at number 4, you won't be able to watch what the other batsmen are doing. You're going to be dozing. Within minutes of the start of Uganda's chase, the player was dozing. Yeah? And it tells you a lot about where we were.
Did they take the comments in good faith?
Yes.
So?
When
Okay.
Conrad Shukri was leaving, he actually wrote a dossier for Cricket Uganda on the things they need to improve. The number of games they should play, those kind of things. So those things emphasize where we are and what we can learn. So I don't want us to take every comment in that faith. These guys are racist. They could as well be. They could as well be. And sometimes I really hope that one day we blacks have the resources and we show them the same level of racism, yeah, to the white people. And
By
that's
denying
very
them
cynical.
visas,
Yeah,
for
that is very
instance.
cynical, yeah. Deny them visas and all these kind of things. But I was mightily pleased. And to get back to what you're saying, the way Ghana set up, it was their only chance to get that kind of result. They need to go to the next round. England were not very good until very late in the game. I don't think they played at the right tempo.
Should they have brought, Rashford in earlier? And
I actually think Rashford should be starting games ahead of Anthony Gordon. I'm one of those.
I saw
I'm
Gordon
in that school of thought because Gordon has not been playing well. I also think Thomas Partey was very good in that midfield to compete with Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, and Elliot Anderson, who is now joined Man City. Perhaps we'll talk about him later on. They competed in the right areas. When they needed to get physical, they did. But you can also not discredit the fact that we have a Ghanaian witch doctor who ensured that Harry Kane does not score. He promised us before the game that he's going to cast a spell that ensures that Harry Kane does not score in that game. And Harry Kane had a very good chance, which sometimes he'll take with his eyes closed, but he ballooned the ball over the bar.
Can that witch doctor make Ghana win the World Cup?
Maybe not. There's a limit
Of his powers.
there's a limit to what you can do in that kind of way. And he's actually said now he's let Harry Kane go, so he can score against Panama.
He's going.
He can score against Panama.
Yeah.
But in the end, for me, Ghana get a positive result.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because had they lost again, then
Their
the
chances
debate
would
shifts. Yeah, the debate shifts, and then their chances of advancing would be very minimal. But now they play Croatia, knowing that if they pick a point, they are certain of a place in the next round. And with the Croatia have showed up at this tournament,
It's not easy.
they haven't been very good. Yes, they lost their first game to England by 4-2, and then were able to beat Panama by a goal to nil. But Ghana should have the faith in them to think that they can pick a positive result over Croatia and that would guarantee them a place in the round of 32.
What about Senegal? They play Iraq.
Very difficult. I was one of the things I do a lot is write headlines. So I wrote a headline for the Daily Monitor saying that Senegal need prayers. Yeah, they need pray as in P-R-E-Y because they are called the Lions of Teranga. Then after that they need prayers because their result may not be sufficient. They could actually win the game and actually get knocked out. I was looking at the table of the best third place teams, and Senegal are bottom of that pile. They are the 12th of the best third place teams. Yeah. And
they are only taking 8.
They are taking 8 of them. And 3 of those places have been sealed off. Ecuador, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Sweden have already made sure that they will be in the next round. So they need to win.
Because of the number of points they have.
Yes.
Okay.
So they need, Senegal need to win their game against Iraq and then hope as other results in other groups go the other way. Because the group is decided between France and Norway. Both of them on 6 points, and they play in the decider. It's about topping the group, and it's also going to be, there's going to be a big sideshow between Kylian Mbappe and Erling Haaland.
But Haaland, I saw this and I didn't believe he had said it, but I've actually checked. He did say, well, it's France. I'm paraphrasing. He said, well, it's France. They're probably going to beat us anyway and win the World Cup.
Yeah.
Is that a good attitude?
He's very cheeky. He's very cheeky. You know, he can look very stiff on the pitch. Yeah, that's why people call him Robot. But when he speaks, he's just a soft, nice boy. Yeah, he's saying what many of us would, maybe shouldn't, because he has a chance to change the result on the pitch. When he says they could beat us and win the World Cup and no one cares. He also emphasizes something we've all seen with this Norwegian side. I think they are really enjoying. They are really enjoying their time. Remember, they've only qualified for the World Cup for the first time since 1998. So it's taken them 28 years. And they've probably been the most popular team at the World Cup with that Viking dance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when the entire crowd goes and then you have Martin Odegaard.
Had they practiced that, do you
Yes,
think?
they did.
Wow.
Yes, they did. And they had a photo shoot before they came to the World Cup, dressed in those Viking costumes. And after they celebrated the way they did, having made it to the round of 32, with that result against Senegal in the week, the 3-2 result, thanks to a very poor defensive display by Kalidou Koulibaly, there was even the parliament, opposition and NRM, yeah, in Norway. All of them did the dance in parliament, on the floor, yes. The speaker said, when parliament convened and said, our support the Norwegian national team, we must replicate what they are doing. So the entire house, both sides, the ones in yellow and the ones in red and blue and whatever color, purple, magenta, pink, the way you people introduce all these colors that we didn't have while growing up. We had red, black and blue, yeah, and white. Then you went and started messing up the world. So the Norwegian parliament joined in the conversation. And it's very heartwarming. So what Haaland is saying is that I think everyone knows they've overachieved. First of all, they qualified for the first time in 28 years. They've advanced the round of 32. They've got to go there and enjoy their game against France. And regardless of who they play in the next round, it will depend. If they play a weaker team than them, then you'd have to demand they go to the next round. But thereafter, if they get knocked out, then who cares? We're only Norway. It's a very small country with a very small population. For whom football is not even their favorite sport. It's ice hockey. So he's only saying something that all of us know, but we do not want to hear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
South Africa, surprise there?
Huge surprise. I wrote them off before they kicked a ball, before even they played against Mexico, because I think they've not gone through the layers of development over the past 30 years or so. From when we first saw South Africa emerge on the global stage by winning the Africa Cup of Nations in 1996 that famous Nelson Mandela emerging in that gold South African jersey. They've not kicked on. Thereafter, they qualified for the World Cup in '98. Struggled to qualify until they hosted in 2010. From 2010, they have not qualified again until now, with the increase in the number of African teams that will be playing in that World Cup. Then they showed up in their first game and were very, very poor against Mexico. Of course, eventually had 2 men sent off. Then they go into their second game against Czechia. They play a fairly good game in the final 25 minutes and deservedly get a goal through Teboho Mokoena, who was eventually missing for that game against South Korea. But I thought tactically, Hugo Bruce was brilliant. Every bit of the white hair on his head showed up with the kind of experience they showed in that game. Very solid defensively, opted to attack on the break, and eventually got their goal through a situation that was also another counter-attacking situation to get that result against South Korea and make it to the next round for the very first time, because they've never made it this far in the tournament. And I've seen Nigerians on X mock them that they've only made it to the next round because the teams are very many. Yeah, because Nigeria would make it to this round even when the teams were 24, or later on when they are increased to 32 from 1998 and now to 48. But for me, they are worth the result. They are worth celebrating. Yeah, the manner in which they started the tournament, the recovery has been very good, and they've been missing players because they've had players suspended for several games already.
Another African team, Morocco. We saw some defensive frailties there.
Yeah, against Haiti.
Yeah.
Even if they also scored a very good goal and also wrote some bit of history through Ismail Saibari. Became the first player to score in 3 successive games at the World Cup for an African side, when he did so for Morocco in that 4-2 result against Haiti. The latter 2 goals coming a bit late. I think that's the one area they've got to change defensively, but also you could argue that they had rotated their squad. They brought in defensively when you do not have Mazraoui, who has been playing at left back. Issa Diop was also not selected for that. I think the coach wants to expand his options going into the latter rounds of the tournament. I also like a bit of their attitude. After making the semi-finals of the last World Cup in Qatar, there's a genuine belief that Morocco could actually go a step further to a final or even perhaps win the World Cup. That'd be testament of the kind of investment they've made. And you've also, I think, seen the story. Morocco are able to start an 11 of players none of whom were born in Morocco. And they've done that for the first 2 games of the World Cup until eventually in the third, they brought in Ayoub El Kabi, the center forward, who is the most popular player. When I was in Morocco, when he walks out or when his name is read, the people feel an attachment because he was born and bred in Morocco and he's made it to this level in the game. I also like the fact about their attitude that I saw an interview done by Onahi, their midfielder who wears shirt number 8, saying that they are very disappointed to finish second. They think they should have kicked on after that 1-1 draw with Brazil. They should have done much better than they have in their next 2 games to finish first in their group. Of course, Brazil have responded after that result, and they've put out 3-0 hammerings of the next teams they've played against Haiti and Scotland. And that's the reason why Brazil finished top of that group and Morocco could only manage second. But just to emphasize why it's not a good thing that they finished second, is that now Morocco have to play Netherlands in the round of 32. And maybe they could have gotten an easier draw had they finished first. So how much further can Morocco go? If there's an improvement on 2022, we should all be gaping at that possibility of Morocco making it to the final for the very first time.
DRC, they also still have a chance of qualifying. They play Uzbekistan.
The whipping boys of the World Cup, the team that shipped 5 against Cristiano Ronaldo and Portugal. So DRC should be very confident. While they may appear like just another team because they're playing the World Cup for the first time in 52 years, Uzbekistan are playing here for the very first time. And there's been a lot of investment. You know, when you talk about investment in sport, and we always reference Morocco in Africa, I've seen what Uzbekistan have done with stadiums, with academies, with their teams, their football teams. It's been a state-sponsored project for a large part of the past 17 years, since 2009, for them to get to this level. However, when they've got here, they're still short on quality. They're still short on quality. They have a coach that all of us will be very familiar with, the World Cup winning captain from 2006, Fabio Cannavaro. He's a man on that bench, but he doesn't have the tools. He doesn't have the tools. So DRC should be very confident. They get a result against Uzbekistan. I think they will be in the next round. Those good positions. He gets a goal or two, and then Portugal on their way. But if you're DRC, then both cannot win. Yeah, Colombia and Portugal cannot win because they play each other. Get your result against Uzbekistan, then you'll have an opportunity of making it to the next round.
Let's talk about Group H. Spain, Uruguay, but the African team there, Cape Verde versus...
which is the other team? Saudi Arabia. If Cape Verde were to make it to the round of 32,
heaven,
the underdog,
yeah,
the underdog in Mebo will be bouncing.
Oh man,
Bosnia already did, and they play.
No, I said plus Bosnia, the goalkeeper.
The goalkeeper, okay,
yeah.
Because of his mom.
Just the story about the country, and
you're too biased
it has
for women.
An opportunity. I think we'll get a time and just talk about the 40-year-olds who have played, or the goalkeepers, because you know Iran also has a magnificent goalkeeper, Curacao. We'll get a show for goalkeepers.
Yeah. Then there's also Craig Gordon for Scotland. He hasn't played a game, and Scotland are on the edge. Yeah, they're almost on the brink of getting eliminated. But like you mentioned, I think Cape Verde would be a very refreshing story.
They can beat Saudi, I think.
They can, but this is the same Saudi Arabia that beat Argentina 4 years ago.
But
so it's not a walk in the park.
When it came to Spain, that was 5-0.
The margin between Saudi Arabia and Spain is bigger than 5-0. So they are lucky to lose 5. I don't think the margin between Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia is even 2-0.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Saudi could even argue they've been to the World Cup
before
more often. But maybe the biggest positive for me is how the island nation played against Uruguay in that 2-2 draw. I could blame Uruguay for being poor. They've not looked themselves. Marcel Bielsa has tried out so many things that are not working. The Argentine coach, and maybe that has showed, and they have to put it together against Spain. But for me, that performance from Cape Verde against Uruguay should be a building block upon which they step on to try and get a result against Saudi Arabia. And I can imagine the celebration, perhaps, and you've seen their fans in the stands. This would be the right time to visit the island, visit Praia.
I heard them say, was it them or even Curacao talking about how tourism is definitely going to increase.
Yeah.
But Uruguay...
And Curacao are out of the World
they're
Cup.
out, but they can go with their heads high with what they have achieved. They've been able... Some countries, maybe I haven't been paying much attention, but Canada had been to World Cup before, but had never scored a goal, and yet Curacao, first time, have been able to score goals. But Spain, Uruguay, they are all in action, I think, tonight.
Yeah.
Or this morning.
Yeah. A bit of those footnotes, I think, in the game. Not the most important game either team will play. Maybe very important for Uruguay. Former world champions won the World Cup in 1930. Have brought us some very good players. The first that comes to mind is Luis Suarez, and several of the others that you might know. It would be a catastrophe for them to get knocked out in a group that has Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia. But Spain, of course, will be favorites. They're in a position where they could top a group. They've won a game and drawn the other. A point would be sufficient for them to top the group and maybe ease their path for the round of 32. But not, for me, not the biggest game. Could be very big for Uruguay, but maybe not the biggest game because Spain are not really chasing a very huge result from it. If they were, it would be totally different.
Okay. And then Egypt, another African country, is playing Iran or Iran.
Egypt need a point to confirm their place, but they could still get through as one of the best third-place sides. Have won a game for the very first time at the World Cup against New Zealand. Yes, Mohamed Salah was among the scorers there. That is the bit of pressure on Salah as a player, and then Hassan Hussein. Another good building block for them against Iran, who have not been too shabby and have been the favorite of the world. I've seen a lot of noise about should we have a game between Iran and the USA at the World Cup. I think they've had one at the Confederations Cup back in 97 or 99. Yeah, and it also had the same kind of noise around it. But Iran will still be underdogs. I'll still back Egypt to get the result that they desire to ensure that they are into the next round of the World Cup. You could argue it's 99.9% that Egypt will be in the round of 32. Okay,
though USA did lose to Turkey this morning, the last kick of the game.
With the last kick, yeah. In the end...
though Turkey is already going home.
They're already eliminated. Adagula was the orchestra of that. He scored one, set up another, and remained a thorn in the backside of the Americans there. The Americans had made so many changes. Their coach, Mauricio Pochettino, made 10 for that game. Some teams are making 5 or 6 from for the final group games. He made as many as 10, and he paid the price for it. They weren't too bad, but in the end, you concede very late in the game, or with the last kick of the game, then you lose 3-2. If you're America, it's not catastrophe, yeah. And now they've set up themselves for what should be a relatively doable round of 32 fixture against Bosnia-Herzegovina. Yeah. I think America should be favorites for that.
They should be. Very quickly, we talked a little bit about them, but Neymar, what did you see?
Just glad to see him back. There wasn't a lot of football to see from what he's going to add. We all know about his potential and talent, and Brazil could use someone with that kind of variation. The talent will never go away. And before kickoff, he had also been lost in the chest of Ronaldinho because there had been a very huge hug from him as I walked out, a hug that was a sign of respect. Good to have him back because you want a player to be on the pitch. He's an option off the bench. When Carlo Ancelotti first summoned him, many of us, myself inclusive, were very critical because Neymar has not been very good, even at Santos. They fought relegation last season and eventually survived. But it's a good squad player. Yeah, they've struggled with that number 10 position, Lucas Paqueta, and they could do with perhaps making a change when Vinicius is tired or when Vinicius is struggling in a game. Neymar could give you that kind of option off a bench as a number 10 and off the left wing. But I also like the fact that the Brazil fans really embraced him when he walked in, and his name was put up, or his number was put up and was going to come on. He got a standing ovation. Later on, we got to learn that in the aftermath of the game, he went to the dressing room and even cried.
Right, yeah.
Because he thought the chance to play for Brazil again had sailed. He had not played for Brazil since 2023, so it's also very good to know that players care this much. So should we.
Yeah, Neymar, I know with the birthdays, and yeah, it shows, there have been some reports here that you wouldn't compare him to Ronaldo, for instance, Ronaldo's display. But let's talk about the top scorers. Already, Haaland is, for Norway, isn't he the top scorer now?
There's only Messi above him because Messi has 5, then there's Haaland on 4, then there's Mbappe, then there is several other players with their own numbers, including Jonathan David, who scored in that game where Canada beat Qatar by 6-0, and maybe Jonathan David deserves a lot more respect because he's Canada's greatest goal scorer in terms of numbers. This race will be very interesting. There hasn't been a player who has got to 10 goals since 1970. The last was Gerd Müller for West Germany. He scored 10 goals. Thereafter, the players have got to 9, 8, 7, including Eusebio, one of the greatest players coming out of Portugal. In 1966, he scored 9 goals at the World Cup. Thereafter, all the other players have got 8, including Kylian Mbappe. So there's a very good opportunity to overcome that mark and get double figures at the World Cup. and perhaps get closer to Just Fontaine, yeah, the great French player who scored 13 goals in 6 games at the World Cup in 1958, but eventually they lost in the semi-final to Brazil by 5 goals to 2. And for them to lose 5-2, Pele had to score a hat-trick, yeah, for Just Fontaine to be kept out of that World Cup final. So it's a very huge opportunity. And Messi has 5 in 2 games. So there are some very big decisions, I think, to make. Some of the players who have an opportunity to score those many goals have their teams having already advanced. So what happens with the final game? Do you rest Messi? Do you rest Mbappe? What do you do with them? If you choose to play them in this final game, for how long?
You haven't mentioned Kane in there.
I scored 2 in the first game and didn't score in the second. I want to understand whether the spell has left him. Yeah?
The witch doctor has said it's not there anymore. So
because he didn't score against him.
Okay.
So it's a tough balancing act because these numbers do matter for these players. We've seen that they really want to get those numbers. Ronaldo has 2 goals against Uzbekistan. If he gets another 2 more against Colombia, then he genuinely thinks that he can get to 10. Yeah?
He has scored now in 6 World Cups.
A bit of history there written in the week. The first player to do so. Because Messi, while Messi has played in 6, he didn't score a goal in the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. So it's a good, heartwarming thing for Ronaldo.
Adds to the competition.
People love their debate for a large part of the past 15 years about Ronaldo and Messi. I personally do not think it's close. I don't even think it's a comparison. But I'm just one. Yeah, my opinion doesn't control what everyone else thinks. But that race should be very interesting. I could imagine if Messi gets an opportunity against Jordan and gets another or 2, then he's on to 6. Then you have Mbappe in his final group game. They've beaten Iraq and Senegal against Norway. If he can get a goal there. Ronaldo still has time, so does Kane, so do all the other players. I've loved the fact that I've been there to witness most of the history. So I'd love that someone gets to double figures at this World Cup while I'm watching. Yeah, then
and
I
they
also
will.
share
I
that
mean, if there are 48, 104 games which you can watch on DSTV, I'm sure someone will get there.
Sure.
Yeah, if one of these big countries reaches there. But before we go on to talk about local football here in Uganda, Infantino during the week said they are not getting 1 coin, 1 penny from the water breaks, from the revenue being made. Is that true? Because he said...
Very possible, because the plan was to give to television companies that are broadcasting to use that time. Now, there are things about American pop culture that we need to learn and understand. That thing of the hydration breaks comes directly from American sports culture and pop culture, you could say. The things we've read about the Super Bowl and a 40-second ad costing as much as 2.5 million shillings. Now, the companies are making sorry. $2.5 million, $2.4 million. I've seen Fox Sports is charging for a 35-second ad during that break, and they're having 3 of them. They are charging, I think, over $4 million. And they paid an arm and a leg to get the TV rights, and they are recouping some of the money from there. I totally understand that when FIFA are doing these kind of things, now for them to have Fox Sports and Super Sport, Fox Sports is in the US, Super Sport and Channel 10 in Australia and all these channels, to buy the World Cup next time, you give them something where they can advertise.
So where is this money going? To
the television companies. You buy your TV rights.
So and then they're going to get so much more.
It makes sense for everyone. If you have cake and everyone can have a piece, that's how the world should be. In Sikugabana, yeah? Everyone should have a piece. And I thought when you mentioned Infantino, I read a story this week that in the first 10 days or week of the World Cup, he had traveled over 24,000 miles.
I'm sure he has a private jet.
Of course he does. Offered to him by Qatar Airways. Part of their sponsorship with FIFA, they've offered him. But even then, so the things we cry about jet lag, does Infantino say no?
I know.
But for me, it makes very good sense that a company like SuperSport go and buy rights to broadcast the World Cup, and their selling point is subscription. So if FIFA gives them a slot where they can get advertisers, yeah, like Mabel Cosmetics or Mabel Perfumes take up that slot. For me, it makes absolute economic sense. And it reminds me of a story, and some people think that the game should remain about what is on the pitch. And I understand that their generation and mine comes from that area. But sport has been so commercialized today that even have you seen what companies on the board where they are substituting players? Rexona, the deodorant, is a company on the board. When you're watching the game, the number of companies that you see on the side, from Visa to Budweiser to Bank of America to Qatar Airways and all these companies, football has become such a cash cow that everyone wants a piece of the pie. So for us who are stuck in the era of just being a game of football, we are perhaps lost.
Behind.
Yeah, reminds me of, I was with one of my friends, Eden Chironde. I used to work at TBW, one of the advertising agencies, and he's given me a lot of marketing gigs during his time. I actually miss you, Eden. Yeah, you should come back into marketing. Second Take with IDK wouldn't struggle if Eden was in an agency, because I'm very sure I would call and give us something that is monetary to keep the show running. So I traveled with him and we're in Dubai. And he told me something that I realized and laughed about. He said, have you noticed that the Dubai International Airport, DXB, is a shopping mall disguised as an airport? And if you've been to Dubai, you walk through the airport and there's something to buy at every corner. So flying is actually the distraction. Now, for us who still build our airports the way it is, we are missing out on the commercial element of life, that economies are making a killing. And Dubai now should be one of the busiest. Of course, the busiest airports are in the US. Then, of course, you think about Heathrow and Frankfurt, and then
JFK.
And then Beijing, and then Dubai is somewhere in the top 10.
But Dubai is somewhere.
Is somewhere in the top 10. So the commercialization of everything else we do reminded me that Chironde told me that, do you realize this is a shopping mall disguised as an airport? And that's actually what it exactly is. So even the sport, if someone is making a killing out of the tournament because of the way the hydration break has been fixed, and I've seen fans boo it, yeah, because they are used to a certain way, the European fans. I don't think the North American fans are booing. When you're watching the NBA, every stoppage, every timeout, which is 2 minutes, then companies bombard you with all these products to buy. The same with ice hockey, the same with American football, same with baseball. You're watching and then they take a break and the next thing is what Second Take with IDK. Yeah? So I think all of us need to adjust.
We need to adjust.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the goals galore with the under-17 Sekafa.
What a team. The Team Cranes, which is the under-17 national team, won the Sekafa under-17 championship this week. The tournament had not been held since 2019, so there's been a bit of a lull, and part of it comes from Sekafa, the Council for East and Central Africa Football Association. Yeah, that's what Sekafa is in full. I don't know whether many of our viewers have even cared to know what it is. The Council of East and Central Africa Football Associations, Sekafa. So they won the tournament. They won it back in 2019, but I think the eye-catching thing from this is the number of goals they've scored. They've been putting away teams 3, 4, 5. They even scored 13 against Djibouti in the tournament opener. 13 goals. So for Cheryl Botes, the coach of all Uganda's women's teams, and I find it wrong that FIFA have decided to go that route, and they went that route 3 years ago.
Because bring a foreigner?
Not only that, but also he's the coach of the under-15, the under-17, the under-20, and the Crescent Cranes.
Well,
and this is the first tournament.
Results.
This is the first they've won. Remember, the team has failed to re-qualify for the...
Do you think there's any Ugandan who would qualify to lead?
It doesn't have to be Ugandan. I think they would have to split up the team. Maybe you have a coach coaching the under-15 and under-17, because the same players that are going the under-20 setup. Then you have both Sandro, maybe the under-20 and the senior team, because they share bulk of those players. So I think the workload...
It's too much for one person.
Yeah, because you're looking at what? Whenever she summons the team, she summons about 35. So when you have 140 players to look at, I would imagine if you look back this year, they've had the under 20 playing and the under 17, one after the other. Remember when we had to explain, we even come to the show and say, remember the other team we discussed last week were the Queen Cranes. Now we are talking about the Tin Cranes. So I can imagine we are confused. Why wouldn't she be confused? Yeah? And after the players are within the same age group because they're all in high school. Yeah? So, but I also understand also with the resources, I can imagine FIFA would want to have 4 or 5 coaches for the teams, but one size fits all at the price of 2, maybe get one and appoint her across 4 and then pay her the salary of 2.5 teams. Yeah? It makes economic sense, but doesn't look very good for me.
Okay. A big one in rugby, Pirates versus Buffaloes.
Yeah, the big final at Kings Park on Saturday afternoon at 4 p.m. Pirates trying to win a title for themselves and Sydney Gongodio. They've been the dominant side of Ugandan rugby for a large part of the past 3 years, so they will be favorites. Buffaloes, some people will argue are only here because Cobs and Heathens have been bad, and Heathens ended up perhaps on the wrong path to play Pirates in that semi-final. So everything points to Pirates' victory. But if they are not up to their straps, Buffaloes could have an opportunity. 13 years ago, I was at Chadondo for a game when Buffaloes did beat Cobs in the semi-final to get to a final. By then, the league was played on a similar format of a knockout basis. And Cobs, I felt on that day, must have looked at Buffaloes and thought this is a win before kickoff, and they paid the price. I don't think Pirates can afford the same kind of complacency. They've improved, Buffaloes have improved in terms of depth and execution. And Andrew Orr, the former chairman of the union, who is now their coach, and has been part of a setup, in and out of a setup at Buffaloes. And they've bought themselves a ticket to the lottery by getting to the final. Yeah. So when you're in that room in Las Vegas, you must think like a millionaire. And that's what Buffaloes have done for themselves.
You know, you have talked about being a millionaire. When I hear the news about the transfers and the monies that are exchanging hands, I get dollar signs in my eyes. So tell us, Isma.
Football has made
Gabriel
its money.
Jesus, yes, they have.
Football has made
that money is insane. It's obscene.
Yeah, football has made its money from around the 90s. Yeah, and there's been a huge process to commercialize the game to get this level. Maybe one of these days we should come here and I discuss João Havelange, the former Brazilian swimmer who became FIFA president, and was the first person to tell the world that we can actually make this professional, when no one believed that football could be that way. And now it's made its money. And no one should make rules for you on how to spend your money if you've made it. Yeah. If you choose to have liver for breakfast, chicken for lunch, and goat's meat for dinner, let no Dr. Kasenene tell you that this is unhealthy. Yeah? You've made your money, enjoy it the way you want. So football is spending its money. Sometimes it can appear very reckless. So the first story started with Gabriel Jesus. I've seen a story that Arsenal are willing to take a cut. Remember earlier in the window, there was a report that Arsenal would only let him go for £25 million. Now they could take anywhere between 15 and 20. And there is an expectation that Everton could be in for Gabriel Jesus to join them. But just to emphasize how much money there is in football, Man City are signing Elliot Anderson from Nottingham Forest for £116 million. The initial fee that had been quoted was 130, which would include add-ons, which would be, let's say City win the Champions League or win the Premier League, then you pay more money. Now they've settled for 116 flat. Yeah, they're bringing another midfielder who could help support that role that has been done by Rodri for a large part of the past decade under Pep Guardiola. My worry, though, with Elliot Anderson is that he's been linked with the club for so long. Now the club is transiting to a new coach. Is he exactly what Enzo Maresca wants? Because City are also paying £17 million to Chelsea to buy out Enzo Maresca. Remember, while he was sacked at the club, he's not supposed to take a job because he had a hefty contract at Chelsea. So they have to pay 17 million to Chelsea to allow Enzo Maresca take the job. Then they've also said...
But if he's on Katebe, it's okay.
When he's on Katebe, Chelsea pay.
Okay.
When he gets a job, then you pay
Then
Chelsea.
You pay Chelsea, okay.
Yeah, I love the business.
So you're on Katebe and you're still getting that money?
Yeah. That's how contracts should
Fire
be.
me. And I stay home with my family.
Yeah. That's why people make crazy money. That's why Zinedine Zidane has been out of a job for long.
He's been on a beach for how long?
But he's not complaining. He was in Morocco watching his son, Luka, in goal for Algeria. His son has actually even been playing at the World Cup with that mask.
Oh,
you know, he broke a bone in I think right above his nose.
Yeah.
So they've had to improvise and give him a mask that he's been wearing in North America during the World Cup. But I've also been looking out for the father, like I did in Morocco. But the father, I've not seen much of the father.
But he's not getting paid now. He just made his money.
He made his money, yeah.
He made his money.
And he tried to put his sons in the game. They haven't excelled at it as much as he would have wanted. One of his sons, I think, retired at 24. Yeah. It was painful. A Zidane son retiring at 24. Anyway, his father too was a late developer. At 20, we didn't know him, and he started balling, yeah, in the sense of being an excellent footballer at about 26, 27. So in the other transfer news, involves a lot of the Arsenal. One, for the sake of our people behind the camera, there is Van Hack from Brighton to Tottenham for a fee in excess of £50 million. That's quite a sum. But remember, the bidding has started at somewhere around 35, and Spurs have had to increase that money from Brighton to let him go. Remember, this is a guy who worked with Roberto Di Zerbi at Brighton, so it's a key ingredient. He's brought in someone who understands how he wants his teams to play. Van Hack is one. The other involves Sandro Tonali. Tottenham have bid as high as £80 million, and Newcastle are saying no, that's little. We want £100 million for Sandro Tonali. So it seems like there's going to be a bidding war, because this player has also been linked with Arsenal and Manchester United. So the longer they hold out, the higher the fee that Newcastle will receive for Sandro Tonali. And someone wants to decimate their midfield, because when Bruno Guimaraes, their captain, has been linked with a move away from the club, is still with Arsenal, because it seems like Arsenal need to sign someone in that midfield area. Noga doesn't deliver the product they wanted. The world has started writing off Zubimendi, and then Martin Odegaard has not showed enough to emphasize that he's going to be in the team on a weekly basis for the next 5-6 years. So they seem they are going to shore up that area and bring in someone. Even if I still think it's more urgent for me to sign a centre forward and a left-sided winger. I think Arsenal see it very different in terms of the players they should be signing. And when you talk about, again, football money, is that this week I've also seen a story that Liverpool bid in excess of £100 million for Yan Diomande, 19-year-old 19-year-old Ivory Coast forward who plays at RB Leipzig, and Leipzig have said that's too little. They want anywhere close to £130 million for him. And seems like Liverpool either have not learnt their lesson with the money they spent on Florian Wirtz and Alexander Isak, and they're even willing to spend much more just to fix the hole vacated by Mohamed Salah, who has left the club. But £100 million for Diomande, maybe the World Cup games may not show us enough, because we've all watched him thrice play for Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast actually did also win their final group game through those goals by Nicolas Pepe. But there isn't sufficient talent in there from Diomande to underline that £100 million that Liverpool are willing to pay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alex Scott?
The Bournemouth midfielder has been linked with moves away with Liverpool, because Liverpool now have the former Bournemouth coach, Andoni Raiola, in the job. So there is a link that this is one of the players they could move with. The other also linked with Alex Scott, I think, is Manchester United. They too, I think all of us know, United have to sign a midfielder. They've already signed one in Ederson, but they are losing Casemiro. And reports also suggest that Manuel Ugarte will leave the club. So they need to put someone in that area to support Kobe Mainoo and Ederson and Bruno Fernandes. Would that player be Alex Scott from Bournemouth, who has a bit of Premier League experience? I think it would make a lot of sense after you've signed someone like Ederson, who is coming out of Atalanta in Serie A. I think their next signing in that midfield area has to be a player who has been playing in the Premier League. That's why I wouldn't even rule them out besides Alex Scott when I think about Tonali and Guimares. There should be options too for United.
Have you mentioned Chalobah?
Chalobah. Yeah, Trevor Chalobah, whose family, I always laugh about their family. Their family has played for Chelsea, are raised in West London. His brother has also played for Chelsea, Nathaniel. He's been linked with a move away from the club, away from Chelsea. And the most credible one I saw is a move to Como. He's been linked with a move away from the club. Would Chelsea start selling defenders now? Yes, they need to bring in some defenders and get rid of some of... they do not have a lot of quality in that area. We've mentioned it repeatedly on the show. Chalobah is a very lucky chap. Yeah, not only has his family played for Chelsea, he and his younger brother. Remember, he wasn't even summoned to the England team.
Yeah.
But luckily, he was vacationing in the US. So when, who did they lose at the time? They lost a player to bring in Chalobah. Yeah, Tino Livramento gets injured in the pre-World Cup camp. Then, who is the closest? You know, it's also not very good to vacation too far away. Yeah, you shouldn't be vacationing in Hong Kong. He's in Miami, and the team is not too far away, and he's called from his vacation. And he says, I'm available. If you're the wife, I've taken you out on holiday. You've said, we are going on holiday this summer because we're not part of the World Cup team. But the team is training in Jinja and we're in Kampala. Then the team says, we need you, Ismail. Would your wife, if you're the wife, would you be comfortable?
It would depend. Is it the World Cup?
Yeah, you know how women, so you've chosen England over me.
It seems they have told you that at home when you're sleeping late at night and someone is waiting for you. It seems they have said you've chosen this game over me. The mistake that people make is to make a comparison. Everything has a deep-seated position. You, has maybe prepared a meal, is looking forward to a wonderful evening with the husband, and you're there after England, then you watch cricket, then you watch basketball, before you know it, it's 4 a.m.
I have children, and I've not needed a DNA test to know whether they are mine, sorry.
And on that note, we have got to end it here. Second Take with IDK. Thank you all for the subscriptions. Thank you for the comments. We love them. Thanks to DSTV, who says everything can wait. Only 15,000.
I hope you can read that very well.
Yeah, everything can wait. Oh, these matches, they have come in fast and furious, but we're loving it, aren't we?
We are.
We are loving it. So take care of yourselves. We'll see you next time.
Are you tired of the daily hustle and bustle, the endless traffic just to get your little one to a good school? GMS Nabingo offers a unique blend of academic excellence with a holistic child development in both nursery and primary. We provide a national curriculum with an international touch. Enroll your child today by visiting our campus along Trinity College Nabingo Road. GMS Nabingo, where every child's potential is a reality. Because we care.